Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levi, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC 219, Cyborg versus Holm. Shaq, it's going down this Saturday, the last event of 2017, and it's a good one to close the year.
Cyborg's one of the most vicious chicks to ever do it, and the co-main event's really my main event. I want to see if Khabib can keep his undefeated record. We know what it is. When he gets on top of you, generally the fight's over, and he's fighting the guy that likes to time the flying knees, the spinning head kick. So I'm interested to see that fight, and there's a lot of other good fights.
Like Edson Barboza said in the pre-fight video, I'm the only man in UFC history to finish a fight via leg kick, body kick, and head kick. So that's all I got to say about that. And obviously, you know the ground game of Khabib speaks for itself. We'll get to that soon. But dude, we told the fans that we were going to have a max bet for this card. And as everyone knows, we cashed back-to-back-to-back max bet winners. Took a week off last week with Alessio. You know, you cashed the 2.5 unit play for me, the 2 unit play for you. And now it's time to get back to max bet season because we got Matheus Nicolau. He's minus 235. The comeback on Lewis Smolka is plus 195. Interesting fight. What do you think?
I think this is a perfect example of Lewis Smolka. You know, a year or two ago, he was riding high on momentum. He had all the confidence in the world. And now I feel like he's been exposed. And now I feel like it's over now. I feel like, to be honest, he was never that good to begin with. I feel like the game has evolved and passed him up. You know, back 4 or 5 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, those crazy scrambles back and forth, that was considered exciting. But now that's not the type of thing you're looking for to bet in. When you're betting, you want somebody that's solid, that's going to hold position, not going back and forth, not going for guillotines from a standing position, going to your back, can't stuff a takedown. And you know what's interesting? After he beat Ben 10, all the momentum in the world, then he gets that fight against Moreno. But to be honest, like, you know what Ray Borg said, I wasn't that surprised Moreno beat him because we know that Smolka leaves himself open for a lot of things. It was just he had that mindset at the time that he was going to get through everything. But if we're being honest, he was fighting the Neil Series of the world. He was fighting the Patty Hoolahans of the world. He was fighting the Richie Vasses of the world.
The Ben 10s.
The thing is, he beat Ben 10. We beat John Moraga. So, I mean, you tell me what's up. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Matheus Nicolau, a lot of people are under the, you know, the people that are betting Smolka are saying, oh, Matheus, he's coming off a USADA suspension. He's first fight off the juice. First of all, if you really look into it and hear yourself talk, you would understand the kid's 24 years old. He ain't going to be having any type of body performance issues anytime soon. It's not like he's been in 100 wars. So, yeah, I'm sure, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he beat John Moraga off steroids. So he passed the drug test for that fight. So on paper, he beat John Moraga off juice, the number 6 flyweight in the world, the second hardest hitting flyweight in the world, and he boxed him up for 3 rounds, stuffed all the takedowns, got on top of John Moraga. And we already know. And the difference in this fight is, for one, we are going to absolutely wipe him out on the feet. I mean, he has nothing for us on the feet. And then on the mat, he has nothing for us on the mat. If he wants to come play that sloppy jiu-jitsu, Matheus Nicolau is a very accomplished black belt. Been a black belt since he was like 18 or 19. Smolka hasn't fought a black belt yet. And now you're going to see the difference between that sloppy jiu-jitsu like you see with him and Elliott, and now you're going to see what a real black belt is. The second Matheus and Smolka hits the mat, you're going to see the difference, and I honestly think Matheus is going to finish him with a rear naked choke, an arm triangle, or a darce.
So did you bet on this fight?
I did bet on this fight. 5 units to win 2.94. I honestly should have put more, but I thought more people would get a emotional betting Smolka. But it is what it is. You know, there will always be another opportunity, and I think Matheus is going to have a dominant decision victory. He is Hawaiian. He is tough. I know he won't quit, but he has no advantage in this. He doesn't have the wrestling advantage. He has no striking advantage in this fight. He has no jiu-jitsu advantage in this fight. I don't see where he's going to win. I mean, I think this is an easy fight for Matheus.
So a lot of people did get emotional and bet Smolka, but, you know, when Half the Battle decides to max bet something and it's minus 175, and then within a span of 10 minutes it goes up to minus 400. That's what sharps do, and that's the bottom line. So I apologize to everyone for ruining that line, but you know, all the emotional Smolka bettors did bring it back down. Now we got minus 235 on Matheus again, back in max bet range. So go ahead and take a stab. And you know, it's pretty funny. One of our fans messaged me and he's like, if Smolka was Russian, his last name would be Smolkov. But anyways, as far as this fight's concerned, every single Lewis Smolka fight starts the same. Within 10 seconds of the fight, He's on his back and he's full mounted, or he gives up his back. He gives up these bad positions because he's very confident in his ability to scramble out of them. And one really good quality about him is when he gives up his back, he's got a very nice overhook. He's so long for the weight class that he's able to reverse these guys and get on top of them and pound them out. The issue here is, when you get full mounted by Paddy Houlihan and, these guys that he's been fighting, obviously you can scramble out of it. If you get full mounted against a first place IBJJF black belt, which is what Matheus is, by the way, there's no scrambling out of it. You give up your back to a guy like that and you're getting choked out, and that's just the bottom line. And Smolka's a very tough guy. We know that. He's Hawaiian. He can take shots. So take shots for 3 straight rounds and lose the decision. It's no big deal here if you don't get finished. Whatever, man. And let's talk about what happens on the feet. I mean, you recall our last fight, we outstruck Moraga for 3 straight rounds. Clean, crisp boxing in that pocket. That left hook is beautiful, by the way.
That's something Magomed Bibulatov can do. Magomed got launched across the octagon. My boy Matheus was calm. One thing I like about him is he doesn't take any unnecessary risks, which would play right into Smolka's game. We're calm. We got that typical old school Nova style. We're not going to do anything stupid. We're going to come in here looking to win on points, and when Smolka presents the opportunity to get choked out, we will take it.
It's so funny. I hear people saying shit like, "Oh, you're betting a guy coming off the juice, whether you saw it." I thought Daniel's the guy that bets against USADA victims, and it's like, hold on a second here. You motherfuckers are acting like this is 40-year-old Vettori, like his body's melting off, and you know what I'm saying? Like it's sad, and it's like, bro, but you guys conveniently forgot that your favorite new fighter, Brian T. City Ortega, also popped when he was about 23, 24 years old in his UFC debut. And what's he done since then, Shaq? He's finished every single fight he's had. So,
he's 24 years old. Let's calm down here.
Motherfuckers acting like USADA thinks going to be a big deal. It ain't a big deal at all.
This ain't 40-year-old Lyoto Machida that's been through the fucking ringer and been through war after war. This ain't Vettori. This ain't Anderson. This is a 24-year-old kid that's got 14, 15 fights maybe? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, and let's talk worst case scenarios here because, look, this is betting. It's a fight, still a fight. No one has an 100% hit rate. So let's talk worst case scenarios. In my opinion, Shaq, the worst case scenario is, first of all, we try to take him down, he gets us in the guillotine, but that's not going to happen. We're at first place IBJJF black belt, the first black belt he's ever fought. Second worst case scenario, he somehow reverses us, gets on top, we can't get out, and he pounds us out, which also is not going to happen, my friend. I mean, when you talk about a Novo and Yao get-up game, I mean, I know everyone likes to make fun of Novo and Yao now because Renan Barão and Jose Aldo, they've been in so many wars that their bodies don't hold up anymore. But when you remember that prototypical Novo and Yao style, some of the best takedown defense in the history of the sport, you saw D1 John Moraga shoot in on a nice takedown on Matheus Nicolau. You saw the effortless shuck that Nicolau had. It wasn't even a full sprawl. It was effortless as hell. His hips were out of there right away.
Like I said, when we make these type of max bets, we go in there that our worst scenario still beats a guy. As for example, Davi Ramos and Chris Grutzmacher in Fresno. That was our worst scenario. I mean, Davi was fucking pulling guard 2 minutes into the fight and getting cracked with right hands, and we still finished him. And I feel like even if Matheus was feeling the USADA thing a little bit, which I highly doubt.
He's not. He's looking ripped as shit. Exactly. You saw the pictures. The dude's ripped, bro.
Which he's not. All we have to do is shoot. We're going to get a takedown. We're going to be ahead on points. At the worst scenario, he's not going to choke us out. We are IBJJF, whatever it's called. IBJJF. Actually, since he's been suspended on USADA, he's won 2 tournaments at featherweight. Actually, so
yeah, I heard another show talking about
black belt.
What's he been doing since he was suspended? He's just been sitting on the sidelines. That's not true. He's been competing in the highest jiu-jitsu tournament, and he's first place.
Another thing is he actually got invited down by Frankie and Marlon Moraes to come train at Ricardo Almeida's, and he's been doing that as well. And guess, matter of fact, if we're talking about mat games, guess who he's training with in his camp? Damian Maia. So if Smolka wants to play jiu-jitsu, by all means, let's do it.
I'm glad you brought that up because Matheus is the kind of guy that, I don't want to say he doesn't have loyalty or this or that. No, I don't give a fuck. The thing that he does, man, is he changes camps for, he does fight-specific training camps. For example, for John Moraga, we knew we had to have our cardio on point. We knew we had to have our striking sharpened. So what did? We did that whole camp at Greg Jackson's, and then we schooled the guy on the feet. For this fight, we know Lewis is an intense scrambler. We know that's what he likes to do. So guess what? We're going to train with Damian Maia, the best jiu-jitsu player in the UFC for this entire camp, and I think he's going to show a lot here, man. And, Louis Smolka, very nice guy. He was the third fighter I ever interviewed on Half the Battle. But as you guys know, none of that shit matters when it comes to betting on fights. And someone, you can't just bet on someone because you like them because they're your friend. Someone's gonna be like, oh, but you bet on Vick every fight. Yeah, well, Vick's got a 92% win rate. Of course, I bet on him every fight. So, assuming I win this fight, as you guys know, this is my last UFC bet of the year. If I win this fight, I'm gonna finish the year 45 units in profit. If I lose this fight, I'm going to finish the year 34 units in the profit. So regardless, my biggest year to date, my biggest straight bet to date, or this year actually, because, I've had bigger ones in the past. And let's get it. Now real quick, I know someone's going to be like, oh, but I thought Randy Brown was your biggest play. It was in terms of amount risked, but I made a dumbass mistake and parlayed half of it with someone else and only put half of it straight. And you learn your craft. I'll never do that again. But in this spot, it's 100%, 6 units straight. And let's fucking go, man. And, I don't want to disparage Louis Smolka, a very cool guy. So I'm not going to talk about what's been going on in his personal life. But what I will say is, type in Louis Smolka, Frank Trigg, UFC 219. That's all I got to say.
Look, Smolka's a tough guy, man. He's Hawaiian. I faded Hawaiian fighters in the past, and they don't quit. You know what I'm saying? He's a tough guy. I know he's going through some, after the Moreno loss, I felt like his confidence just, completely was shot. I mean, he lost to the number 16 seed on Tough, a guy that got finished in his first fight on Tough, and Moreno has proven that he is a top 10 flyweight. But the thing is, not only that fight, after the Ray Borg fight, if you go on UFC Fight Pass, you watch that UFC 207 Thrill in the Agony. And I mean, the words that the kid was saying, I mean, that's not what people say after facing defeat. I mean, Ray Borg, completely dominated the scrambles. And after the fight, Louis Smolka was like, man, I might as well quit now. My record sucks. I might as well work at McDonald's. And, that just shows you what the mindset is. He can act like this and that. I mean, he's a tough guy. But when your skills aren't up to par with Matheus, and I know you don't have that confidence anymore, and I know what you're doing outside the octagon, it's Mac's best season.
Bro, I didn't want to get into it, but since you brought it up, we might as well. Maybe this is the last episode of the year. Look, he went on Half the Battle about a year ago after, I believe it was either the Moreno or the Ray Borg fight, and, he said the way he dealt with that loss is he stayed in about a corner for about a month, and he drank himself to bed every night. Now, I thought he just had a twisted sense of humor. I thought he was being kind of funny about it. That's what he did. Well, dude, it turns out that's what he really did. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Just go check out the Frank Trigg interview. UFC 219, Louis Smolka, Frank Trigg. So, bottom line, look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll tip my cap to Louis Smolka if he pulls this off. I just don't think he will. 6 units, Matheus, Nicolau. I hit it minus 175. Currently, it's minus 235. We're back in max bet range. As long as it's minus 250 or less, I say go at it. And may the best man win. So let's go, Matheus. Now, next up, also in the flyweight division, we got Tim Elliott. He's minus 220. The comeback on the newcomer, Marc De La Rosa, is plus 180. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get it out there, man. Marc De La Rosa, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's been training his wrestling with Kenny Monday for about 3 years. He's got decent boxing. And one thing about Tim Elliott, man, this could be the classic letdown spot. I mean, when you're training to fight a guy like Justin Scoggins, you're expecting fight of the night, and then Scoggins pulls, which he is known for, Shaq. And then you get the call that you have to fight Pietro Manga. Then Pietro Manga can't make the weight. Then your coach unfortunately dies, and you find out that Tim Elliott bought a house in Vegas just so he could hang out with Coach Robert Follis. Rest in peace. I'm not talking any shit, but this is the scenario we're dealing with here. And then you hear the pre-fight interview with Tim Elliott, and he says, James Krause, my head coach, was telling me yesterday we should probably pull out of this fight. And also, Tim Elliott was saying about a week ago he was, he was hitting that bottle pretty hard, man. So Tim Elliott doesn't really seem like he's in a position to win. But the one thing he does have going for him, Shaq, he's so much more experienced than Marc De La Rosa. Marc De La Rosa doesn't know what this level is like. The most he's faced is Combate Americas. I know he beat a UFC vet and Joseph Sandoval, but let's be honest. Joseph Sandoval's only UFC fight lasted 20 seconds when Nick Denise blasted him with elbows. You remember that shit? So, but hey, Marc De La Rosa handled him exactly how you're supposed to handle him, which is get him the fuck out of there right away. So now it comes down to, are we seeing the best Marc De La Rosa? Probably not at short notice, but I can 100% guarantee you we're not seeing the best Tim Elliott. It's going to be a very closely contested fight. I'm going to lean towards the upset here, actually, but it won't surprise me if the vet gets it done. But the way Elliott's been talking, he's hitting the bottle last week. He just feels like he shouldn't be there right now fighting.
Look, you heard me say on the UFC when I picked Shaw, I was highly considering fading Elliott, and I'm highly considering fading Elliott again. Look, the guy's 3-6 in the UFC. Yeah, I understand he's exciting. I understand he's a fun fighter to watch. But let's be honest here. The high level flyweights don't get smoked like that against Ben 10. Now I understand Ben 10, he's an exciting fighter, but Ben 10's also another exciting fighter. Ben 10, has he gone 3 rounds yet?
In the UFC? Not to my knowledge.
He ain't gone 3 rounds yet. That's how you separate.
Actually, that's not true. He did when he beat Gene Herrera.
Oh, you went 3 rounds?
But he schooled him for 3 rounds. It wasn't back and forth.
I'm talking about a high-level back-and-forth fight for 3 rounds.
No back and forth.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? That's what separates the Sergios, the Cejudos, the DJs, the who else is up there?
Nicolau,
exactly. I feel like Ben 10's right outside there, but he's not there yet. He's an exciting, fun fighter that likes to fuck guys up, and he fucked Tim Elliott up. Now, look, I looked into the De La Rosa kid. I feel like the De La Rosa kid's no slouch. I feel like he can box. I feel like he can wrestle. Like we said, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I feel like he might have the advantage everywhere against Elliott. Like, look, when you talk about that Elliott and Smolka fight, I honestly don't know how I got fight of the night. I mean, for one, it was fairly not one-sided, but I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's low-level stuff, in my opinion. When I talk about high-level flyweights, I'm talking about the Sergios, the Cejudos, the Matheus beating Moraga, the John Moraga knocking out Magomedov Bibulatov. Not that sloppy, back-and-forth scrambling. Like, we're past those days. And I feel like Elliott's still on that thing. Now, I know he took advantage beating up on some young guys like Shelton and Schnell and the Jap on Tough, and I feel like he can beat those guys. But when this De La Rosa kid, I feel like, and not to mention he's fighting at bantamweight. Tim Elliott ain't no fucking bantamweight. He's a flyweight.
But real quick, Marc De La Rosa, he's 5'4".
He's 5'4", but he's fought at bantamweight his whole entire career. Tim Elliott, when's the last time he fought at bantamweight? Probably on some jobber show.
Look, like I said last time Tim Elliott fought, this dude's got wins over Jared Papazian, the green-haired guy, and Louis Smolka.
Exactly, man. So, like, for him to be lying like this, I mean, look, yeah, he had a good fight with DJ, but he lost, And I feel like, yeah, he's got more experience, but I feel like we said, honestly, I have a speculation that the guy's fighting for the wrong reasons. Every interview I hear from him, it's about money. It's about money. I bought a house for $270,000. Coach died, which is not a good situation. But I'm talking about other things. Just the fact that even before Robert Fallis died, the Pietro Manga fight, he's talking about, I'm not going to, everything's just about money for the guy. I feel like he's fighting for the wrong reasons. I feel like he's sounding broken, destitute. And, I feel like De La Rosa's going to come in here and put a clinic on him.
So you betting it?
We'll make talks. If there's a need to, I'm gonna look more into it. I'm gonna see how De La Rosa and them look on the scales, and I want to see how the size, weigh. Because like I said, Elliott ain't no bantamweight. De La Rosa's fought at bantamweight his whole career, whether he's 5'4" or not. And I got De La Rosa. That's all I gotta say.
Middleweight division. We got Marvin Vettori. He's -220. The comeback on Omari Akhmedov is +180. What do you think?
It's what I like to call a trap fight because, a guy just looking at it on paper would think, oh, Omari, man, that guy's been knocked out by Zaleski. He's been knocked out by Serginho. He's been finished by Gunny. I mean, he's chinny. He's old. And, Marvin Vettori, the Italian stallion, guy's very explosive. Had a good fight with Carlos Jr. I mean, he almost finished Carlos Jr. in that second round. I feel like the guy's got a very good future, but his cardio is lacking big time. I mean, you saw that Vitor Miranda fight. The guy gasses out. You saw the Carlos Jr. fight. The guy gasses out. I mean, it is what it is. He comes out hard, and he gasses. And, you would think that he has a big size advantage with Omari moving up from 70, and that's not the case at all because when we saw Omari in there with Razak Al-Hassan his last fight, I mean, you saw the size of Omari. I mean, his shoulders look so big, and I understand why he moved up to 185, and now we're probably going to even see a better version of him. So this is a fight that I would stay away from totally. It's either dog or pass. Like we said, Omari moving up from 170, he's been used to getting hit by welterweights, but maybe his chin, eats a better shot now because his fight with Razak Al-Hassan that third round, his chin held up, and in the past against, Zaleski and Serginho, it didn't. So it's a fight I'm staying away from. I'm going to take Vettori in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Omari pulled it off at all.
I question if it's that his chin didn't hold up or is that his gas tank didn't hold up, and as a result, he had to take a knee in the Zaleski and Serginho fights, because in that Al-Hassan fight, he was just as gassed in that third round, but I guess he had that experience to carry him through there. But, man, he's moving up for a reason. The thing with Marvin Vettori, man, I love that King's MMA pressure style, that southpaw. He goes forward, big body kick. And I think he's actually going to be bigger than Omari Akhmedov here. So we know Omari's got the typical Russian style, which I respect a lot. I respect every single Russian warrior. They truly are elite fighters. I think there's something about the youth here of Marvin Vettori. Now, look, everyone's got to take... Actually, he already took his first UFC L, by the way, against Carlos Jr. So, maybe I shouldn't even be talking about that. I think Marvin Vettori is going to win this fight, man. I think he's the rightful favorite here. I got a lot of respect for Omari Akhmedov, but I think Marvin Vettori's pressure is going to be too much. And even though he does gas out, Omari gasses out too, man. So, they're both going to be tired. It's going to be kind of fun to watch. It's going to get sloppy at times, but I think Marvin's forward pressure is going to be the difference here. Featherweight division. Myles jury's minus 200. The comeback on Rick Glenn is plus 170. Now, Shaq, you recall Rick Glenn's last fight against Gavin Tucker. It opened a pick'em. Now, the public steamed Gavin Tucker to minus 400, and you saw what happened. Rick Glenn set a significant strike record on his face for the featherweight division. You think he's going to come out here and get his second straight upset in a row?
Man, it's a good fight because, Jury, at one point, this kid was thought to be a future world champion. You remember when this kid got fucking right off the tough show, got Michael Johnson, who was a top 10 guy at the time, and he 30-26'd him. He went on to knock out Ramsey in the gym, knock out Gomi, some other wins. And ever since that Cowboy fight, the alarming thing about the Cowboy fight wasn't the loss, it was what he did after the fight. He completely changed everything. He left the people that bought him up, Alliance MMA, and then he dropped to featherweight. Right
that
after
was out of nowhere.
Right after one loss. He was 15-0, 16-0, whatever he was. On one loss, I'm switching teams and I'm dropping a weight class. And then, he goes in there against Charles and gets choked out. Then, he leaves that team. And now he's back with the people that bought him up. Now he's back with Jeremy Stevens. He's back with Eric Del Fierro. He's back in San Diego. I guess the kid finally came to his senses and was like, maybe he was a young kid. He was stupid. I don't know. But that's alarming, when after one loss, you just bounce out, drop a weight class, and change teams. So, and, Rick Glenn's that type of guy, on paper, yeah, all his opponents have the advantage against Rick Glenn. He's one of those Darren Elkins guys. He's one of those Evan Dunham guys. He's like one of those guys you think I'm gonna beat his ass.
He's even got a little Matt Brown in him.
Exactly. He's one of those guys you watch him on tape and you're like, oh, I'm gonna run over this guy. And then when you get in there with him, you're like, oh fuck, he's tough as hell. Let's recall back when Georgi Karakhanyan was the man outside the UFC, when he was the best featherweight outside the UFC. Rick Glenn made him quit and broke his face. You know what I'm saying? And Rick Glenn was the World Series of Fighting champion. Now, what this fight comes down to is how does Rick Glenn deal with Jury's style? Because Jury's style, it's a pretty style. He's not going to be in there looking to fight Rick Glenn. I'll tell you that much right now. He's going to be looking to stay on the outside, look pretty, get a couple nice, single legs, stay him down, use his black belt, try to nullify Rick Glenn. And it's going to be interesting to see if Rick Glenn gets frustrated with that or if he takes it to Jury. Because how many times has Jury fought in 2 years?
Once.
And who was that against?
Mike De La Torre.
Exactly. So, like we said, Jury really ain't done shit in the last 2 years. And I know he's back with his old team now, but Rick Glenn is not the type of guy you sleep on. Rick Glenn's one of those guys, like I said, he's a Elkins, he's a Dunham, these guys that you think you're going to beat his ass, and then it turns out he beats your ass. He's just one of those guys, yeah, he likes to block punches with his face, he likes to get hit a ton, but it's just a matter if he stays on him, and I think he will, actually. I think he's going to stay in Jury's face. Like we said, they're both tall featherweights. I think Rick Glenn's 6 foot. I think Jury's like 5'11", 6 foot maybe. And I think Rick Glenn's one of those guys that you just don't want to sleep on. And I think a lot of people, I see a little more money's coming on him, but I think Rick Glenn's going to stay in his face. I think I think he's just, the length of him is going to be too hard to take him down. And we have seen him get dominated on the mat before by Lance Palmer in World Series, but I feel like, he's training at Alpha Male now. Hopefully, he's learned from those mistakes. And, his last fight, you saw what he did. Everyone counted him out that fight. I remember him being like plus 335 on Fight Time. And, Gavin Tucker may never fight again. Just put it that way. That's the type of beating Rick Glenn dished out. So I'm gonna take Rick Glenn in this one. Like we said, Jury hasn't done anything in 2 years. I feel like, yeah, on paper, Jury's a better fighter. Yeah, I feel like he's better on the feet. Yeah, I feel like he's better on the mat. But let's see where he is mentally if things start to get tough, because I know mentally Rick Glenn is as tough as they come.
It's a great point, man. And listen, I always respect the odds maker's perspective. You know, he opened Myles Jury minus 300, which one could say is a joke, but at the same time, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, you know, why did you open Myles Jury minus 300? And there's a reason why. Myles Jury is the way smoother guy here. But the thing is, if this is a pretty fight, Myles Jury is going to win all day. If this is a dirty, gritty fight, Rick Glenn's going to win all day. So, you know, when you don't have money on the line, like I don't right now, you know, I mean, I'm not even that invested into this fight, man. There's no money on the line. It's going to be fun to watch. So either, you know, Myles Jury is going to point fight him or Rick Glenn's going to get in there in the clinch, rip elbows, you know. But listen, man, Myles Jury's got some clean techniques. Like, you remember that fight with Cowboy, and right away he shot a beautiful blast double. But what happened was Cowboy immediately attacks Umaplata, takes his back for the whole round, and totally broke his confidence. I don't think Rick Glenn has the kind of jiu-jitsu that Cowboy Cerrone had at that point in time. I mean, that was back when Jones fought DC the first time. So I'm thinking if Myles Jury does take Rick Glenn down, now I could be wrong. Rick Glenn has been putting in work at Team Alpha Male, so you know if he gets back up and nullifies the takedown, then then I'm wrong about that. But I think that Myles Jury will be able to take down Rick Glenn, and I think he's going to keep Rick Glenn down. I've seen Myles Jury keep people down. I saw him keep Michael Johnson down, which was fucking a million years ago, 2013, but he still did it. And then also the Cowboy Cerrone fight, but Cowboy's got much better jiu-jitsu than Rick Glenn. So, you know, it's all about where this fight takes place. I'm going to go with Myles Jury by decision, but I wish luck to everyone betting Rick Glenn, because I gotta root for the grimy, dirty guy in there. You know what I'm saying? I love Rick Glenn. He's a cool dude, so I wish him the best. So next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Khalil Rountree. He's minus 325, and the comeback on Michal Alexa Jacek is plus 265. Now, Shaq, let me ask you a question. You know what's one thing you need to have in the UFC? A ground game.
I mean, yeah, like we said, it's another fight. Stay away from. Look, I think Khalil offensively striking is fucking dangerous as hell. I mean, the guy hits like a fucking truck. He kicks like a truck. But like we said, one little back take, one takedown, mentally, the guy's going to be at the fight. You know, this Michal Olik, whatever his name is, the Pole. Guy's tough, man. On the local scene, he gets his ass whooped the first minute or two, and then he beats the guy's ass and he finishes the guys. And this is a very tricky fight. I see a lot of people playing the over and the under and at like minus 200 or something like that, and I don't understand it at all. Look, maybe you guys have a edge that I don't have, but this is a fight I want to stay away from. I can't trust Rountree. I trust Rountree against like certain guys, like, you know, Paul Craig, for example. A guy that I know the second he touches him, they'll go down. And that might be the case here, so I'm going to go with Rountree. I've seen Michal get tagged on the local scene, but he generally comes back. But it wouldn't be shocked if he did it again, if he can get a takedown, but I feel like offensively, Rountree is one of the most heaviest hitters in the UFC, one of the hardest kickers in the UFC, and I feel like he's going to put him out.
Look, I view Khalil Rountree like I view a prime Melvin Gillard. You know, on the feet, he's very, very dangerous, but the fight hits the mat one time. You attack this guy's neck one time, you know what I'm saying, man? He's going to be tapping that mat right away. We ain't fighting no hands. We're tapping that mat right away. So, you know, with Michal Alexa Jacek, it's one of these situations where, like you mentioned, Shaq, he gets tagged up in all his fights early on, but he's found a way to come back and break the dudes, and then he finds his timing. Then he looks good all of a sudden. It's like, whoa, you know, the dude you see in the first 2 minutes is not the dude you see in the last 3 minutes of the round, right? So it's all about if he can get past those first 2 minutes. So it's going to be interesting because Khalil Rountree, what I like about his striking style is he's got that southpaw stance, kind of like Anderson a little bit. He plays around with his hands down. He kind of dances in there. He's very fun to watch on the feet. He's a very explosive guy. He's got knockout power for days. But, man, like I said, the first question I asked you a second ago was, what's one thing you need in the UFC? You need wrestling. You need jiu-jitsu. You need a fucking ground game, man. Like, this ain't glory, you know what I'm saying? This ain't K1. This is the UFC. So this fight hits the mat one time. I'm not saying he's Gomi level where, you know, for a fact if it hits the mat one time, it's going to be over. But if it hits the mat one time, whoever bet on Rountree is going to be shitting their pants. And when I say hit the mat one time, I don't mean Rountree dropping Michal, because you know what I'm saying? Because then he'll probably finish the fight. So, most likely, Rountree is able to capitalize on the early defensive flaws of Michal, Alexa Jacek, and get him out of there with a knockout. But the thing is, man, if he does not get him out of there with a first-round knockout, don't be surprised when he gets choked out. That's all I got to say about that. Well, guess what, man?
So you picking?
Khalil Rountree, man. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Because even though if it hits the mat or if it gets past the first 3 minutes, there's that high chance that, you know, Michal weathers that storm and takes over. The thing is, I'm not convinced Michal can weather that storm. There's so much firepower in those first 3 minutes,
big
man.
Fucking haymakers.
So yeah, I mean, Khalil's a very dangerous dude standing, and I love my strikers, but man, the one thing I love more than my strikers are my well-rounded fighters. You know what I'm saying? My dudes that can win no matter where the fight goes. And I know Khalil is not that guy, but in this spot it might not even matter. So, you know, I think he'll get a knockout here, but you know, when he fights Jan Blankovic next, you know he's going to be faded. I'll tell you that right now. So main card time. Marc Diakiese, he's minus 190, and the comeback on Dan the Hangman Hooker is plus 165. Now, this is interesting, man, because Dan Hooker is literally a 500 fighter in the UFC. Win one, lose one, win one, lose one, kind of like Andre Fili does. But you can't just say that's going to be the trend, you know, for the rest of his career, because you saw the guy we just mentioned, Jan Blankovic. He could never get a UFC win streak. He could never get a UFC win streak in his life. And he just got his first UFC win streak, 2 wins in a row. So
that's what Meldonium does.
So we're going to see Hooker get his first UFC win streak, or do you think Diakiese's going to get back on track and teach him a lesson?
Another fight I want to stay away from. You know, one thing, you know, before the Jakar Close fight, you know, the reason why I'm glad I didn't play Diakiese was because, you know, I felt like he was a gas out waiting to happen. I felt like Rountree, you know, he'd blow himself out in the first and then round 2 and 3. But I actually like what I saw from that fight because the calf kicks, you know, that MMA Lab calf kick, I mean, shut his leg off. And, I mean, that third round, he could have so accepted it. But, I mean, I felt like he made Close quit in the third round. I felt like Close was looking for a way out in the third round. So that just shows me the type of heart that Casey has, that he wasn't willing to just accept defeat and like, man, this guy's just going to calf kick my legs. That Casey wanted to win that fight. And, you know, the fight against Frankie Perez, I know Frankie Perez is a jobber, but that third round, you know, it was a little hairy in that second. He was getting tired. And what did he do? He had the instincts to fight smart, get a takedown. Let me just seal off the win. That's the type of guys you need on your team. Now, look, Dan Hooker, I've always felt like Dan Hooker was going to figure it out one of these days, and he just hasn't. Now, look, beating Ross Pearson means nothing to me.
Or me.
Or, you know, it might mean something to somebody else betting Hooker. You know, I mean, if you can't beat Ross Pearson, I mean,
hey, we got it.
Like, look, there's no spot for you. If you haven't figured out to beat Ross Pearson yet, I mean, there's just no business for you in the UFC at this point. But, you know, so that win means absolutely nothing to me. He should have done it earlier, honestly. But Hooker's no slouch, man. Like I said, the dude's like, what, 6 foot, 5'11"?
6 foot.
6 foot. And, I mean, the guy's long as hell. I saw him sparring in Thailand. I mean, he's looking real slick right now. The thing is, can you count on the guy? Is he trustworthy? Is he going to lay another egg? Is he going to lose another? Can he not put 2 wins together in a row? You know, those are not the type of guys you like betting on. Look, unless it's a specific spot where his opponent's just like mentally weak or, you know, on the decline. And I don't feel like the case is like that at all. So I'm gonna totally pass. It would either be dog or pass. I think Diakiese's gonna win the fight. I feel like it's gonna be a close fight, a fight that's up for grabs in the third. And I feel like Diakiese will, you know, stay ahead on the points just by doing overpowering things. Maybe slamming him on his head a couple times. You know, just landing a big kick. But I wouldn't be shocked if Hooker won. But my pick is Diakiese. It's a fight I'm just going to sit back and enjoy, but I got Diakiese.
Look, if you're in the UFC and you haven't figured out how to beat Ross Pearson yet, I mean, that's all I got to say, man. I'm actually very impressed with Diakiese. I know he cost a lot of people a lot of money his last fight, but look, he's 23 years old. He had to take his first L. It was what it was. But one thing I really like about the kid, you know, we can talk about his athleticism. We can talk about his dynamicism. We can talk about that unbelievable highlight reel knockout he had over Teemu Packallen. But that's not what I want to talk about, Shaq. What I want to talk about is The fight with Frankie Perez, it's tied 1-1 going to the third round. He had to make a decision there. Both guys were gassed out. If he wanted to win that fight, he had to do whatever it takes to win that fight. And when you're gassed out in that third round, you can't be throwing that spinning shit, which he's known for.
Let's lay on him.
So what did he do? He took him down. He grinded out the round. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that's the sign of a future world champion, but that's the sign of a future world champion. You know what I'm saying?
That's the kind of guy you need on your betting team, point blank, period. Look, a Frankie Perez, a guy that's known for going to his back repeatedly, when the fact that, like, in a guy like him being a flashy striker, a guy that likes to make the crowd go ooh and ah, like saying, you know, fuck that. Let me just get this takedown and win the fight.
Yeah, so I'm with you on this one, man. I'm going to go with Marc Diakiese. Look, Dan Hooker's a very tough guy, man. He's tall for the weight class. He does have that tall man defense, but my question here is he going to evolve to a point and find his range and, you know, finally put it all together like you were alluding to? Or is he just destined to be that dude that has the tall man defense for the rest of his career? You know, Marc Diakiese made, you know, a really good point in his interviews, man. He's like, whenever Dan Hooker gets to this point, he always loses. He beats the guys he's supposed to beat, but he loses to guys like me. And I'm like, Marc, you're right, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I just think Marc's going to be too fast for him, too athletic for him, and I think he's going to get this win here. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got Carlos, the natural-born killer, Condit. He's minus 160. The comeback on Neil Magny is plus 140. Now, man, it's been a long time since we've seen the natural-born killer. In his prime, he would have absolutely mopped the floor with Neil Magny. But now he's coming back after 2 retirements. Do you think he still has what it takes to beat a guy like Neil Magny?
Speaking of Carlos Condit, I mean, I used to be the biggest Carlos Condit fan out there. I mean, you know, speaking of his last fight with Damian Maia, I got super emotional. I think I got robbed on the Barzola and Bochniak decision and something else. And then I parlayed Anthony Pettis and Carlos Condit thinking, you know, Carlos ain't no bitch. He's, you know, he'll weather this early
Last time he got tapped out was 2006 by Pat Healy.
Damian will take him down the first 2 rounds, but 3, 4, and 5. I mean, Carlos is going to absolutely butcher him is what I'm thinking. And Carlos went out there and basically gave him the fight and quit. I was in shock at the time. I was like, "What the fuck?" And you know, it is what it is. That's why you don't. That's why you don't chase. That's why you don't get emotional. And that was a time ago, and I'm completely different now. But look, Carlos, in my opinion, should never be a favorite against a top 10 guy. Now, look, I understand why he took this fight. I understand why everyone takes a fight with Magny. They think he's the easiest fight in the top 10. They think he's the guy that you can punk out. And look, that's the case when Magny's fighting Dos Anjos or when he's fighting big power strikers like Lorenz who mentally are in a good place at the time. You know, those guys will get him out. But
Lorenz before he fought our boy Douglas.
Before he got his life changed twice. And, you know, Carlos being minus 160 now, look, I highly considered Magny, but I passed because I preferred other options. Because, look, my thing with Magny is, I feel like, don't forget Magny beat Kelvin Gastelum now, first 3 rounds. So the thing with
Took
Magny
his ass
is,
down like nothing.
When you bet on Magny, you already know there's going to be some very hairy moments. Look, if Magny eats one behind the ear shot, Magny's the type of guy to, you know, go to a knee and start covering up and, you know, what we like to call pussy shit at times, you know, and it's just unfortunate. Look, the guy's a great fighter. The guy wins fights, though. He's a very good point fighter. Magny's that guy that you'd like to have on your betting team in certain spots because you know that he can outscore some of these guys. And I feel like Carlos, at this stage in his career, is that type of guy. So, like we saw Magny get wins over Gastelum or Hector, those big names, Johnny Hendricks, that he has on his resume, I feel like he's about to add another one on this list because I feel like Carlos is completely done. I feel like Carlos is another guy who's fighting strictly for the money. He needs the money. He needs this $100,000 to come back. So you know, he can, you know, just pay a few bills here and there, and he'll come back a year from now. You know what I'm saying? Open a coffee shop and, you know, set yourself up. And I feel like Magny's that type of guy that sneaks up on guys. I feel like it's probably going to be a controversial split decision where everyone's pissed that Carlos lost, and we know Magny will win the fight because Magny's that point fighter. Magny's the guy that likes to throw triple jabs out there, likes to get those double unders and muscle. He's actually very strong, man. The guy took down Hector. He took down Kelvin. I mean, the guy's got some very solid wins, beat Tim Mean. So don't sleep on my boy Neil Magny. Now, look, like I said, with Magny, it comes from some very hairy things. When we bet on him against Hector, Jesus Christ. I mean, the guy was like, Magny, stop being a pussy. Oh, my God. And You know, he pulled it out. But the thing is, I feel like Magny plays possum a lot. Like, I feel like Magny's not hurt at all. I feel like he just, like
even the Young Lim fight.
Yeah, I feel like he just, like, even the Padalino fight, like, I feel like he wasn't hurt at all. Like, I feel like he just, I don't know what it is, why he likes doing that, but I feel like this is a good fight for Magny to get another big name on his resume. Like I said, I don't think Carlos has any fire left. I feel like he's coming back for that 6-figure check. And I feel like even his we sat down here and watched him versus Thiago Alves, and I mean, let's just put it this way: him versus Thiago Alves. If you watch that now, that shit ain't flying in today's welterweight division. Both those guys will get laid stiff. And look, Carlos is one of the best to ever do it, but the guy's 7-6 in the UFC. What's his takedown defense area? I mean,
probably 32%.
The guy is notoriously known for being able to be wrestled, so I feel like there's definitely past the victory. For Carlos, you just gotta punk Magny out, get in his face, knock him out. Magny, see if Magny wants out. But look, people think that's easy, but doing it is actually another thing. But I got Magny all day in this one.
You know, it's an interesting fight, man. And before I talk about how I think Magny's going to take down Carlos Condit, let me preface that by saying, yes, I understand Magny's no D1 All-American, not even close. But the bottom line here is he's good enough to take down Kelvin Gastelum multiple times. If that was a 3-round fight, that would have been a 30-27 Magny, by the way. So, yeah, MMA math don't mean shit, obviously. But look, when you're taking down an actual wrestler, not to mention a short, stocky wrestler, means he's got a lower center of gravity, means his takedown defense is going to be way better, because you know with Condit, he's 6'2". The dude's got no takedown defense whatsoever. I think that Magny's not going to have too big of an issue getting those body locks. I really think if he gets that body lock on a guy like Carlos Condit, he is going to be able to take him down. And from there, we know Carlos Condit's got a great guard. We know Carlos Condit off his back, I mean, in his prime at least, Shaq, he was landing big elbows to the top of the head against the dudes he fought. But
those days are long gone, man.
I mean, listen, man, I have a WEC belt on my wall signed by Condit and Dominic Cruz. I got a WEC hoodie. I got a lament over the past natural born killer. I mean, because listen, man, you and I were watching that fight with Jake Ellenberg. You and I were watching that first fight with Martin Kamen, even back in the WEC against Miura, that 4-round war. I mean, that guy was just one of the most exciting fighters in UFC history. But as you know, when you have that style, you take so many shots, it can only hold up for so long. And these are Carlos Condit's words. These are not my words. He said, I don't feel like I belong at this level anymore. He said that after the Robbie Lawler fight, and then he retired, and he came back against Maia, and he ate one punch from Maia. He was rocked. He got his guard pass choked out. You know, he tapped out right away. This is a guy that he would have ate that shot in his prime and laughed at Maia and hit him with 3 elbows from the bottom. But now those days are long gone. The thing is Magny going to drop the ball again? But Magny's 12-5 in the UFC. Magny wins a lot, man.
Magny only drops the ball to the best.
I think Magny's volume is going to be a big issue for Carlos Condit here, and I'm going to go with Magny by split decision. Now, next up, in the women's strawweight division, we have Cynthia Calvillo. She's minus 250. The comeback on Carla Esparza is plus 210. Now, man, it's so intriguing. I love this fight because we know Carla likes to grind shit out. We know she wants to take it to the mat. But when you take it to the mat against a chick like Cynthia Calvillo, she's a shark. She can swim in those waters. What do you think about this fight?
You know, it's very interesting because, look, I like Calvillo. She's smoking. But look, long term, I feel like she will definitely take her first L and some others after that, because her matching up with the Tisha Torreses of the world, the Claudias of the world, the Andrades of the world, the Carolinas of the world, I feel like she, unless she makes significant improvements, I feel like on the feet, those chicks will take care of her. Now, look, I feel like this matchup in terms of big names in that division is good for her because look at Carla Esparza. I mean, it's not like she's improving. It's just the same basic shit. But that basic shit beats a lot of chicks. Her only losses are to Randa Marcos, Joanna, and that's it, right?
Yeah, she only lost to Joanna and Randa Marcos,
yeah,
as far as I know. Unless she had an early L way back, which...
No, I'm talking about in the UFC.
Oh, UFC?
She had some
that's it in the UFC.
Yeah, exactly. Just Randa Marcos and Joanna. And, you know, that wrestling is very difficult for chicks to deal with. Look, I've bet on Carla in certain spots, you know, against jobbers like Juliana Lima because...
Don't remind me, I have Lima.
Because, you know, I know those chicks won't be able to handle it. And, you know, I almost considered her against Moroz, but it was just too high because I know those chicks won't be able to handle it because that wrestling Yeah, the shots are horrendous, but we know in female MMA that a lot of chicks they don't know how to deal with that. Now the thing with Calvillo is I like her mindset and her jiu-jitsu is fucking fantastic. But when you're fighting Pearl Gonzalez, is she in the company anymore? I don't think so. You know,
It's funny. You know what they did for Pearl
they
Gonzalez?
sent her to
They sent her down. It's like she got promoted to the
You know what
fucking
I'm
minor
saying?
leagues.
Exactly. She got sent down.
Demoted.
She got demoted. She got sent down, is what they call it in the pros. And I mean, look at Pro Gonzalez's last fight. I mean, that chick is fucking horrendous. And then Bobby Cooper. What's her record? Like 2-3, 3-3.
2-7.
Exactly. Of course she can beat that chick. Now the win over Calderwood. Now look. Personally, I understand why she got 2:30:27s, but if we're being honest here, she lost every stand-up exchange for about 4 or 5 minutes, 4:30, and then Calderwood, the little fragile girl, the mentally weak girl, would get her back taken, and Calvillo stole around. So I get it. The thing is, I don't know. I can't sit there and just back Calvillo as this chick that's going to be a future world champion like a lot of people think, because I don't think so. But the thing is, I feel like she might get this one just because Carla's game isn't improving. Carla's the same fighter. The thing is, that fighter wins a lot of fights. So I'm going to go with Calvillo. But I would not be shocked if Carla won this at all because, like I said, I'm not sold on Calvillo being this chick that everyone thinks she is. Granted, I think she's got a good mindset. I think she trains at a good team alpha male. I feel like she's surrounded by the good group of people, but her striking is very green, and it's not like she's this 22, 23-year-old chick. She's 30, 31, so I mean she's in the prime right now. So granted she does get over this Esparza hump, but don't sleep on Esparza because she's been around the game forever, man. Like way back in the day, and she's a consistent winner. Now I know she lost to Randa Marcos, and Randa Marcos is one of those chicks that win, lose, win, lose. So Randa Marcos just lost, so Randa Marcos is probably going to beat Juliana Lima. So she's one of those type of fighters. Now look, I personally thought Carla won that fight. I understand why Randa won. It was in Canada.
My plus 240 cash.
But I scored that for Esparza, but I could get it. She did a lot of stupid shit. Those takedowns are very rudimentary, very from way far out, and a chick that trains at alpha male might be able to see that coming from a mile away. But it's definitely a dog or pass situation. I'm gonna go with Calvillo just because I feel like Esparza gets discouraged a lot. I feel like it's just the same shit over and over. Her stand up is just the basic. Fake the shot low, come back up with the shots high, and then that's just the same basic combinations, the same entries, and we'll see how it goes. But it's a pass fight for me. I'm not sold on either of these chicks.
Yeah, look, dog or pass bet-wise, but pick-wise, I'm actually going to go with Cynthia Calvillo. I know she's minus 250, so it's not a big surprise. But look, here's why, man. You recall that fight with Randa Marcos and Carla Esparza where I cashed that plus 240 on Marcos, and, you could argue that she lost that fight, but it doesn't matter. She won. But what I want to talk about, more importantly than winning or losing, was there were certain scrambles in that fight where it almost seemed like Carla wasn't setting up her takedowns well, and then she'd get in kind of a crucifix situation, eat some big elbows to the head. And I'll tell you this right here, right now on Half the Battle Shack, if you shoot in sloppy against a chick like Cynthia Calvillo, if you leave your neck hanging against a chick like Cynthia Calvillo, she's going to take your back and she's going to finish you. And, you recall that fight with Bobby Cooper, man, where she went from a front headlock. She was going for a Darce choke. And then she switches it to a back tick. I was like, damn, that shit was smooth as hell, man. If she's on that, bro. Well, the reason I'm not worried about her stand-up because both their striking sucks. You know what I'm saying? So this is contested on the feet. It's going to be some really ugly shit. But on the ground, it's going to be some beautiful scrambles. I personally favor the jiu-jitsu of Cynthia Calvillo over the wrestling of Carla Esparza. Look, I respect them both a lot. Esparza, I know people like to shit on her, but I respect the hell out of her, man. This is a chick that has a win against Rosa Namajunas. And not just a win, Shaq. She finished her inside the distance. Something Joanna could not do. She also has a win over Tisha Torres on Tough. So Carla Esparza has been in there with the best, and she's beat the best. But the thing is, to be the best, you got to beat the best. So let's see if Cynthia Calvillo can come out here and upset the former champion. Regardless of the result, I will not be surprised, but I simply feel as if the scrambling ability and jiu-jitsu of Cynthia Calvillo will beat the wrestling of Carla Esparza. So let's tune in Saturday night to find out. Here we go. The people's main event. Holy shit, son. Khabib, the Eagle, Nurmagomedov. He's minus 280. The comeback on Edson Jr. Barboza is plus 240. Now look, man, if Khabib wins this fight, he will be 25-0. One does not simply go 25-0 in pro MMA, let alone in the 155-pound weight class, the deepest division in the entire sport, Shaq.
What Khabib's been able to do is just, unheard of. I mean, when you manhandle Dos Anjos the way he did, I mean, there was points in that fight where Dos Anjos was looking at the ref begging, for for the ref to let Khabib to separate him because he was that frustrated, bro. And I mean, we saw the Michael Johnson fight. A lot of people like to make a deal like he was rocked. Yeah, he was a little rocked. It's Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson's fast. And Michael Johnson cracked him. But I don't think the fight was ever in trouble of being over by any means. And we saw what he did to Michael Johnson, who's got some of the best takedown defense in the lightweight division, or at the time he did. And I mean, the guy's won every fight he's been in. The thing with that is, like we said about a lot of people, like we said about Justin Gaethje, who was, 18-0 or something like that? Going undefeated at the lightweight division.
Just the UFC.
Just the UFC, period. And MMA, period. It just doesn't happen. Like, you don't go undefeated. I don't give a fuck who you are. You could be the greatest thing ever to hit the sport. You will take an L. And we don't know when it's going to be with Khabib, but trust me, he's going to lose one of these next two upcoming fights. The thing is, I actually think he would dominate Ferguson. I've always felt that Edson Barboza was the worst matchup for him because look at Edson's history. Now, I know Edson in the past, I feel like Edson got over a big hump his last fight against Dariush because in the past, the way Beneil came at him, I mean, Beneil was kicking harder than him, punching harder than him, taking it to him. And I mean, in the past, Edson would completely get broken by that. We remember the Jamie Varner fight. We remember the Danny Castillo fight where he got wobbled 100 million times and he pulled that one off. But we've seen him get punked out in the past. Guys put that pressure on him and him just, the Michael Johnson fight, for example, where Michael just took it to him for
Jamie Varner.
Jamie Varner. And, I feel like he got over a hump because in the past he would have totally got flustered by that. And, he timed that beautiful flying knee as, Beneil was getting a little tired and he saw it coming, that takedown. And I feel like that could totally happen in this fight. Edson's that type of guy that, you sit back and you just wait for him to do something crazy. You wait for him to land a spinning head kick or a flying knee or a body kick because he's just that type of guy. Now, look, I understand one takedown. If you're betting on Edson, you have to go in here with the mindset. I feel like plus 240 is an absolute joke. There should never, ever be a plus 240 next to Edson Barboza's name in any fight. And, like you said, betting on Edson, you have to go in there with the mindset, like, look, one takedown, and this might be over. We might get back up in the second, but, I mean, we're probably going to be completely gassed because Khabib has that type of top game. Khabib has that type of pressure, that ground and pound, the Kimuras. I mean, the guy is vicious on the mat. Now, on the feet, I feel like Khabib presents a lot of openings. It's just that these guys, when they get tied up with him, they just have no answer for it. So that's why I have to pass on Edson because, it's just a matter, is his top game, is his clinch game just that good where guys just can't deal with it? Because it obviously seems like it. I mean, when you manhandle Dos Anjos like that and Dos Anjos can't get up, like, Dos Anjos has been a black belt since he's like 19 years old, you know what I'm saying? We've seen Dos Anjos on the mat just calm as ever, sweeping guys.
That's how he did Neil
exactly.
Magny.
You know what I'm saying? And like, Dos Anjos is looking up at Rafael Cordero like, this motherfucker won't get off me, you know what I'm saying? So it's just, but I do think, I think Edson's going to pull this one off with something flashy. Look, I'm not going to bet it because like I said, for the reasons I just said, Khabib might be the best in the world. But the thing is, you never want to count a guy like Edson out. It's dog or pass 100%. You don't bet on an undefeated guy in the UFC's lightweight division at minus 280 unless you truly believe the guy's, the future of the division, which he could be. I'm not saying he's not. But this is the 100% that spot where you take the dog in this fight because, like we said, guys don't go undefeated in this game. We've seen it time and time and time again, especially in the last few months. So I'm going to go with Edson. I feel like this is going to be Khabib's first L, but I'm going to sit back and enjoy and Whoever wins this fight, if Khabib wins this fight, he's 100% getting the title shot. I mean, 25, 26 and 0 or 25?
25, about to be.
Yeah.
If he wins.
If he wins, 25 and 0. So if Khabib wins this fight, I mean, holy shit.
Man, it's such an incredible fight. And, you know, it's just about, is this finally going to be the time that Khabib takes that first L, or is he going to break Edson? Look, historically speaking, Edson struggles with pressure fighters, man. And that's the way to beat him, man. With Khabib, you know, the first minute or two, he kind of circles around, doesn't do much. But when it's time to turn up, if there's one guy that can turn up, it's Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean, who else is in there throwing double flying knees against Rafael dos Anjos? Who else is in there, you know, eating those shots from Michael Johnson? And then he was like, all right, now I'm going to suplex this guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm going to pick him up, walk him halfway across the octagon, and slam him. So it's just one of these things where, is he going to be able to do that to Edson? Also, I could see a situation where Edson's really picking him apart with big leg kicks, big body shots. He's circling off. He's recentering for 4 minutes straight. And then the last minute of the round, he gets taken down, gets pounded on, and then when he gets up, he's not the same anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then when the takedown attempt comes, he's trying to go for guillotines, which is totally uncharacteristic, which is what Michael Johnson did, because that's the kind of pressure
desperation
that Khabib brings to the table, man. But here's the thing. He's been out since 2016 for a reason, man. And you try to come back earlier this year, but you remember what happened. That body shut down, son. When you pull
all
out
the surgeries, all the weight cuts.
When you pull out of a title fight on the day of the fight, or actually on the day of weigh-ins, you don't even show up. I mean, that says a lot about the state of his body. Like, can he even make 55? Now, let's say he does make 55 this weekend. Is it going to be a situation like, and please pardon, please bear with me when I make this example. Remember when BJ Penn tried to make 45? And it was just like, bro, like, you know what I'm saying? He's gassing out after one round, but it was so forced. Yeah, he made it to the scales, but it was a skeleton. It was just a really bad thing. Now, obviously, Khabib's got a lot more life, a lot more gas in the tank than BJ. That's not what I'm trying to say here, guys. What I'm trying to say here is that, is this finally that time where, look, man, the liver, the kidneys, all this shit shutting down, and now you're trying to lose that weight again.
Fighting Edson Barboza, who will kick that liver in.
So it's just one of those situations where, is he gonna look like not the same guy anymore, or is it still gonna be the same dominant Khabib Nurmagomedov that we know? So that's why it's a hard fight for me to call. And one thing I love about Edson, I love his discipline standing. Obviously, we all love his leg kicks. We all love those fast combinations. We all love the spinning shit. And like I mentioned earlier on the show, only man in UFC history to win a fight via leg kick, body kick, and head kick knockout. I mean, that's the kind of badass this guy is. But one thing I love about him is his footwork, man. Because he'll get off on these combinations, then immediately he always centers back to the middle of the octagon. He always resets. The dude is so fucking... technical is a word that everyone uses. There's a better word than technical.
Edson's on a different level than
technical. It's so systematic. There's a purpose behind everything he does in the stand-up exchanges. I know in the past we've criticized his chin and stuff like that, but the thing is, man, it's not necessarily that his chin is that bad. It's just that he does kind of falter under pressure a little bit. But like you said, he might have turned a corner in that Benny fight. Because I'll tell you this, Benny's striking is on a completely different level than Khabib's. I mean, Benny, he's got the leg kicks, he's got the knees, he's got the punches, he mixes it up. Benny's a guy that outstruck Rashid Magomedov for 3 rounds in Mexico City Elevation. Benny's a guy that beat Vick. Benny's a guy that beat Michael Johnson. And fucking Edson went out there and knocked this guy out. Devastating fashion after taking his best storm for 7 straight minutes. That says a lot about Edson. Edson's also about 32, 33. So right now he is in the prime of his career. So is this that time where he's going to go out there, get this big upset, knock out the very feared, the respected, the undefeated Khabib Nurmagomedov, and get a title shot of his own, man? You know what I'm saying? Because, look, Edson's been in the UFC a long time. I know he wants to crack. I know he wants to get in there and get a title shot. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Either way, the winner of this fight is going to make a statement. I don't see this being a split decision type fight at all. I see the winner of this fight winning dominantly. Someone's going to get it taken to them. I hope Edson wins this fight. Nothing will make me happier than seeing, the best striker in the UFC lightweight division knock out the best wrestler in the UFC lightweight division. Gut says Khabib's going to win, but heart says Edson, no money on the line. Let's fucking go, Edson. Take care of this shit. Well, Shaq, it's time for the main event, and we have a special guest for the main event, and joining us now is UFC Top 15 lightweight James the Texecutioner Vick. James, what's going on?
What's up, man? Nothing, just got done training.
Awesome to hear. Well, dude, listen, man, you called me about a month ago. You said Bet on Holly Holm and bet big. Well, now you're on Half the Battle, the #1 MMA betting show on the web. Let the fans know why you're taking Holly Holm here, dude.
Yeah, stylistically, this is a tailor-made fight for Holly Holm. The only thing she has to avoid is really getting in a clinch battle with Cyborg, because Cyborg's probably not going to just shoot no dynamic blast double. So she's just going to have to avoid the clinch so she can't get drugged down to the ground. But I just think that stylistically, Holly Holm is a way better striker. I don't understand why she's such a big underdog. I mean, I'm happy she was because I bet a lot of money on her. But I just don't understand why she's such an underdog. She just, her style play. I mean, Cyborg's style is tailor-made for Holly Holm. She's going to move. Cyborg's going to come right at her. She's going to be available to be hit. And could Cyborg land something big? Possibly. But, I mean, Holly Holm is a multiple-time world champion boxer. Her movement is phenomenal. Her kicking game is good. And her defense is good. She doesn't take a lot of shots in any of her fights. And I think that there's a good chance, this being a 5-round fight, I think there's a good chance that Cyborg gets finished, honestly. I think that she gasses out, and if she don't pull something off in the first 2 rounds, I think Holly Holm gasses her out and could potentially land one of those big kicks or something and knock her out.
Vic, I got to play devil's advocate on this one, man. So are you not concerned at all that it's going to go down like the Durandamy fight?
Not at all, because I promise you, let me tell you something. If Durandamy fought Cyborg, she would whip her ass on the feet too. I'm telling you, Cyborg is not the level of striker that Jermaine Randamie or Holly Holm is. She's just a brutal girl, a mean girl with a good chin and good power. But could Cyborg beat Durandamy 100%? Because she would probably take her down and finish her. But on the ground, on the feet, she's not better than either one of those girls. She's not. And I think that there's a difference between fighting an 8-time Muay Thai world champion that's also the same height, that's long, that knows how to really fight a skilled fighter, another skilled striker, and then Cyborg just being an aggressive brawler. There's a difference in the two.
So another thing that I have to ask is, are you worried at all about Cyborg cutting off that ring and not letting Holly Holm get off on that footwork, which she is known for? Because Holly loves to run around the ring and point fight, which is great for winning decisions. But Cyborg does hit like a truck. Are you not worried about her cutting off that ring?
Here's my question. Okay, has Holly Holm been cut off at all by anybody else and been caught with anything big where she's been hurt and got knocked out? Has that ever happened?
I mean, besides Durandamy?
But Durandamy didn't knock her out.
That's true, but she did hurt.
And that was a close fight. She cut her off decent, and she landed some points, but that was still, you got to be honest, that was a close fight. I thought Durandamy won too, but it was a close fight.
This is true.
If you're betting, here's the thing: if you're betting on Cyborg to win this fight, you better bet on her to win it on the ground, because she ain't gonna outstrike Holly Holm. I'm sorry. Now, don't get me wrong; anything can happen, and this is MMA. Anybody can land a haymaker, but I'm not betting on her landing a big punch and knocking out Holly Holm. I'm not doing it. There ain't no way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I sure as hell ain't laying money on a minus 340 in a spot like this. I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, I feel like he made some good points. Like, look, Cyborg has had everything come easy to her. I feel like everything is... When's the last time she faced any real adversity in the cage?
Never.
Exactly. So, what happens if she just freaks out when things start to get rough and Holly is, absorbing the shots well? And like we said, Holly's honestly more experienced in terms of UFC level because she's been in all these big fights, the Rousey fight, the Miesha Tate fight, even though she lost, even the Durandamy fight, these main events. And, like we said, Cyborg ain't been through no adversity. Now I feel like Cyborg on paper has more ways to win, considering that she's probably better on the mat. The thing is, Holly trains with Izzy-style wrestling. Going to be very hard to take her down. But I'm interested to see what happens when Cyborg gets hit on the chin clean. What's going to happen? Because she's not used to getting hit in any of her fights.
I will say this, man. A lot of us were surprised when Lena Landsberg made it to the second round with her.
Evanger made it to the third.
Evanger made it to the fourth.
Fourth, yeah.
So, Vic, you might be onto something, bro. It's funny because
Do you guys, honest to God, think in your mind, no, be serious, that Holly Holm can go 5 rounds if she can't get a knockout? Do you really think that, or a submission, do you really think in your mind that she can fight 5 rounds and outpoint Holly Holm on the feet and win a point decision? Her only way is to land something, a haymaker, or get it to the mat. There's no way that she has the car. She gasses out after 2 rounds, y'all. Have y'all not seen this girl fight before? Now, granted, it's because she goes 0 to 100 and just takes off and just sprints the whole way. But what happens when she sprints and it don't work out for her? You really think she can fight 25 minutes?
I honestly do think it's gonna go 5 rounds. The thing I would say though, look at Holly Holm's history though, like the Valentina Shevchenko fight. Granted, Valentina's more efficient than Cyborg, definitely a lot lighter, definitely a lot faster. But she lost. She lost a 5 round decision because she was, inaccurate, missing a lot of shots, getting countered coming in, and then the fight with Durandamy just got started too late. Lost the first 3 rounds. But like I said, I feel like Durandamy is the best striker in any female weight class. And then the Betch Correia fight, even though she KO'd Betch stiff, the lead up to that fight was, very inactive. A lot of staring at each other. So that's the reason why, me personally, I would pass just because, is Holly the type of chick that you can count on to stay ahead on points, or you're going to have to look for a one head kick knockout?
So you think she's going to outpoint her or knock her out?
Who, me? I think that she has a chance to finish her in the later rounds, but I 100% think that, honestly, guys, I'm not even being funny. I don't understand how she's even an underdog. I think these odds should be even. I really believe that. I get that Cyborg is a way better grappler. I do understand that. But Holly Holm hasn't really been down that much. She did get finished, by Misha, but I don't think, she got finished on the ground, but, she survived, one of the rounds, and they did go 5 rounds, but she's a mover. So she doesn't get taken down a lot because she does move her feet. That's the way I fight. I don't get taken down a lot, and if I do, I get up quick, but I'm a mover. And I just don't understand how y'all think that she is even half as striker than Holly Holm. I promise you, even in the Betch Correia fight, Holly Holm may have been winning a boring decision, but she was winning that fight. No. And she has no problem winning a boring decision. It may be boring and she may run for 5 rounds, but she's going to win a point battle. I really believe that with all my heart. I think she easily wins a point battle.
Well, dude, I hope you cash this bet, man. This dude's persuasive. You talking me into a bet, Vic?
Daniel, you better take the bet, bro. You're gonna be calling me, texting me, saying, "God, I wish I would have took Vic's pick."
I know, man. Vic's picks have been killing it all year. So, dude, before we let you go, man, I heard your interview on BJPenn.com. We're aware of the situation right now. So, is it looking like you and Trinaldo in Texas?
You know what? I haven't even heard. You know what? I talked to Sean a week and a half ago, and he said, I'll get back to you in a few days. I talked to him, I talked to him on Wednesday, I believe, of last week. And he said, I'll get back to you, and I haven't heard a word from him. So I'm just waiting to see. So I'm traveling right now, so I haven't really hit him up or anything like that. But maybe tomorrow I'll go ahead and hit him up. I'll hit him up tomorrow or Saturday when I finally get to camp. But he said last week, get ready, be in camp. He said, start getting ready. I'm going to get you on the card. And I'm assuming that's the only fucking dude that's going to take the fight because the rest of them ain't.
Yeah, we know Trinaldo will fight anyone, anytime, any place. What do you think, man? He's a good southpaw. He's experienced, tough dude. What do you think?
Yeah, this dude's a serious fighter. He's not a joke. The dude won 7 fights in a row in the UFC. He can fight. It's still a best case scenario for me because he's ranked above me. I'm not gonna. I really don't want to fight someone ranked below me at this point. With the record I have in the UFC and. He's still ranked above me, so at least it's still a step up, and even if it's only one step up, And he's a tough matchup, but of course, I think I'm going to win.
Yes, sir. Well, Vic, man, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, man. I hope you cash this bet, man.
Yes, sir. I'll be texting you after the main event on Friday, saying I got paid.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Vic, man, you take care and best of luck in camp.
Yes, sir. Later, guys. Thank you.
So, man, Vic made some really good points, dude. So now we got to get down to the pick. Are you going with Cyborg or are you going with Holm?
I'm going with Cyborg, man. Now, look, I'm not sold on Cyborg long term. Just because I feel like, I have a speculation that, she's one of these, if she gets cracked on the chin, which she hasn't been cracked on the chin in any of these fights, that maybe, she's getting a little up there in age. And, Holly Holm is just the type of chick where I just can't trust, man. I bet on her against Miesha Tate. We had that fight in the bag, and she got choked out. And then, I bet on Valentina Shevchenko because I knew that style. She's not very accurate. She just likes to grunt a lot and make sounds.
Ish, ish.
You know what I'm saying? That type of thing, the Marina Morose type thing, and you know,
Ish, 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 ish.
just making a bunch of sounds but not really landing shit.
She could have been a pro tennis player in another
Exactly,
life.
you know what I'm saying? Them two, for example. I mean, it's good on points if you can find a way to make it work. But she's very inaccurate, except with the left kick. And then you can't trust her on points, in my opinion. You just can't trust her going to the scorecard. She's let people that are better on her. I know she has let down time in and time out again. And, people saying she won that Durandamy fight. She didn't win shit.
I bet her in that Durandamy fight. She did not win a fucking thing. She
lost the first 3 rounds, arguably the fourth, but we'll be nice. We'll give her the last 2. And Durandamy won the first 3. And, Betchko Hayer, I mean, if you can't beat Betchko Hayer at this one.
If you're in the UFC and you haven't figured out. If you're in the
top 10, if you can't beat Betchko Hayer, then, I don't know what to say. But it was a good knockout. She better do that in this fight. I don't understand the 10-unit Cyborg bets. It's definitely dog or pass, but, it's just something I'm going to sit back. Like I said, the easy money is opening up the FS1 prelims.
So, man, dog or pass from a bet perspective, no doubt about it. Plus 310, Holly Holm. I mean, you're going to play that before you play a minus 340 Cyborg all day. And Vick made some good arguments, man, because, look, Cyborg does kind of gas out a little bit. You saw that Evinger fight. That was kind of ugly. Not only that, man. She did dominate, but Evinger ain't shit. Evinger got finished in the first round by Yana, bro.
Don't talk about my girl,
Yana. I bet Yana in that fight, by the way, bro. But, the Evinger fight's one thing, and then also the Lena Landsberg fight, not getting her out of there in the first. I know, look, she won, she dominated. It was what it was. Holly Holm does have a questionable chin, man. I mean, even Ronda was rocking this chick.
Her, Valentino wobbled
her. I mean, she got knocked out the ring in a boxing match, too.
Quinn's very chestnut.
So, it's one of these things where, is she going to get caught by Cyborg and go down? Or, eventually, will she frustrate Cyborg so much to the point where she can circle off, get off on that, you know what I'm saying, that point fighting game, and then win a decision? So, gut says Cyborg, man. I hope my boy Vick wins this fight, you know what I'm saying, to get this plus 310 underdog play. So, let's see what the fuck happens. Now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is the 7-times DraftKings qualifier himself. I'm talking about Kyle Marley. Kyle, how's it going, man?
Great. Ready for another fight card. That week off felt like it was a month off, so I can't handle too many more of those. I'm glad we got some this weekend.
Well, man, I mean, not only do we have a card this weekend, it's the last UFC card of 2017. What a year it's been, man. But real quick, before we talk about that, I mean, you just got flown out to Miami. You just did some damage over there. How was that experience?
Man, it was amazing. DraftKings treated us like kings. It was free food, free drinks almost all weekend. The hotel was great. I didn't finish where I wanted to in the contest, but I'll take $5,000, I guess, and a free trip. Can't complain too much about it, but hoping to go back next year. It was a great time, and I definitely suggest, if you got the bankroll for it, to chase a live final because it's worth it.
For some people, that's 50 units profit, Kyle. So, I mean, not too shabby, my friend. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So, man, I mean, this last card of the year is coming up, and normally, we start at the bottom, we go to the top. Let's start at the top and go to the bottom, man, because this main event between Cyborg and Holly Holm, it's real interesting. Because on one hand, you look at it, you see Cyborg, she destroys pretty much every chick she's in there with. Devastating Muay Thai, but Holly Holm, she's got that point fighting style. She's got that grunt and run, you know what I'm saying? When she gets off on that ish, you know what I'm saying, bro? She's got that shit going down, so it's about, are you willing to take the shot at plus 305 to find out if she can be the first woman in UFC history to defeat Cyborg, or do you think Cyborg is going to continue her devastating ways and knock out Holly Holm?
If I had to bet this fight, I think I would rather go with Holm's side and just take the plus 305 right now. I can see how she wins this fight, so I am interested in her a little bit. However, you got to pick Cyborg to win. Her style is just a little too much for pretty much every woman in the world, and I think eventually she's going to get to Holm. But like you said, she's a point fighter. She likes to run around the cage. I don't know how well that'll work with Cyborg. She's straight ahead at all times, so I'm interested to see how these styles clash. But I think Cyborg has more ways to win. So, a DraftKings perspective, I would rather, I think, have Cyborg, just because she's likely to outscore her salary of 9,300. Holm, on the other hand, when she wins, the only time she scored high was against Ronda. Other than that, she's scoring like 60 points and wins. So even if she gets that here, she's really not doing much with the $6,900 salary. So I think in DraftKings, I prefer Cyborg. But if I had to bet this fight, why not just take the shot on Holm? I'm not going to lay 335 on Cyborg.
That being said, though, man, I mean, you think Cyborg's going to cover my 9,300 salary? Because that's no easy task to cover.
Yeah, I think it would be hard for her not to, especially with 5 rounds to work with. She's not going to let Holm run around the cage like Jermaine Durandamine did. So she's going to come forward, and if she gets a knockdown, she's going to follow those up with punches. She might even try and get this on the ground, where Holm really doesn't have much to do down there, and I could see her getting some ground and pound for a finish. Her first fight, she scored 116. Her second fight, 134, and then the last fight against Evander, she had 92. So I think she's got a really good shot of going over that 9,300 price tag.
You brought up a really interesting point, man. You said that, she's not going to let Holly run around the ring kind of like Jermaine Durandamine did. Can you kind of emphasize, why you say that?
I mean, when have you ever seen Cyborg take her time? She's not scared of anybody, I don't think. So she will be coming forward. She might be a little more cautious than she usually is because Holm is the best fighter she's ever fought. But there's no way she's going to be scared not to come in. And I think she's going to be full forward, try to get her against the fence, and let the bombs fly.
So, man, this co-main event of the evening, honestly, it's the most intriguing fight on paper, pre-fight. Because when it actually happens on Saturday night, it could be one-sided for either guy. That being said, before the fact, I'm just so intrigued by it. Obviously, we know the deal here, man. Either Edson's about to outstrike Khabib, or Khabib's going to take him down and pound him out. Which way you leaning?
I think Khabib's the way to go here, just because of his style. That's what you want in DraftKings. The only way Barboza is going to win is just by getting a knockout probably early in the first or second. And I don't see many strikes coming with that. I think it would be a one-hit, Khabib falls, and it's over. So I think maybe he's got a ceiling of around 95 or something like that, which is solid for his price tag, but that's best case scenario. Khabib has so many ways to pay off his price tag of 9,100. If he wins, he's going to get it to the ground the entire fight if he doesn't finish it down there. So he's averaging 108.6 fantasy points throughout his UFC career. So that's way more than that 91 that you're going to need here. And I think he is going to get the win. I think he is probably going to get a decision, just beat the hell out of Barboza for 3 rounds. And then he's going to get that title shot.
I got to ask you, what did Khabib score in that fight with Michael Johnson? Because, it's funny, that fight was in 2016. Khabib was about 23-0 at the time. And I thought I was some genius picking Michael Johnson at plus 260, thinking that finally he had to take his first L. And we found out I'm no genius. Khabib beat the fucking shit out of him. How many points did he score there?
120, so that's pretty damn solid. And then the fight before that, he had 139. So he's a killer in DraftKings. He's a killer in real life, and you just want those points that come with it. So I want to invest in Khabib. I think this is a good card to do it.
So Cynthia Calvillo is taking on the former champ Carla Esparza, and I know Cynthia's favorite here, but we can't forget Carla's got wins over Rose Namajunas inside the distance, Kyle, and she also beat Tecia Torres. I see a lot of people taking the shot on Esparza. I understand why, but that being said, Kyle, we know Cynthia, she's a shark on the mat. We know Carla wants to take her to the mat. That's right into Cynthia's world. Do you think it's going to be the wrestling of Carla Esparza or the jiu-jitsu of Cynthia Calvillo that's going to be the difference here?
My pick to win would be Calvillo. I think she'll end up being a little bit better everywhere. But the problem is she's 9,200. She's right under Cyborg in DraftKings. And I have a real hard time clicking her name over Cyborg's. So I would lean towards Esparza because on this card, the DraftKings pricing is pretty jacked up. They have no mid-range. So you have to have 2 underdogs. No matter what, you have to have at least 2 underdogs on your team. So you got to go hunting for the dogs somewhere. I think this is one I like taking the shot on. I don't see Calvillo just destroying her in the first round, so I think Esparza has a decent floor. I can see her getting a win if the wrestling does work out for her. And if she does win, she really doesn't need to score too highly since you got to have 2 dogs that hit. So I would rather go ahead and take Esparza rather than paying up for Calvillo. The only thing I can say about Calvillo is everyone's going to think the way I'm thinking. You're not going to want to pay for Calvillo when she's right under Cyborg and right above Khabib. So everyone's going to go to Esparza or they're going to fade Calvillo. So you can get her at real low ownership. And if she does get maybe 10 takedowns on the wrestler or a whole bunch of advances, she could pay off big if she scores big.
So, man, obviously, you know Carlos Condit's making his return. You and I have spoken about this privately. He's taking on Neil Magny, and it's super interesting, man, because you and I both know in Carlos Condit's prime, he smashes this dude, and it's not even going to be a closely contested battle. He'd run right through him. But Carlos Condit has retired 2 times in a row. He retired after the Robbie Lawler fight. He retired after the Damian Maia fight. He even said after the Robbie Lawler fight that he doesn't feel like he belongs on this level anymore. Now, that was against the champ at the time. Obviously, Neil Magny is not the champ, and we know Neil Magny has been exposed his fair share of times as well. Now, Kyle, you picked Neil Magny to beat Kelvin Gastelum at about plus 325. You were on Half the Battle for that episode. It was a very expert pick. Are you going to pick him again here as an underdog against the returning Natural Born Killer?
No, I'm going with the Natural Born Killer here. I've seen nothing from Magny to think he can beat an even faded Condit, really. Even if we're not getting the same Condit that we got 3 years ago, I don't see how he's so worn that he's down to a Neil Magny level. And I told you before, I like to go off what I see. I don't watch film to waste my time and go guessing how Condit's going to look. So I got to go off with what I've seen. I'm writing off that Maia fight because Neil is no Maia. And you said that after the Lawler fight, he said he doesn't know if he belongs in that division. Well, he should have won that fight. Therefore, how can the champ not belong in that division at the top anymore? So all I've seen from him is just that terrible takedown D. And I don't see Magny really exploiting it too much. He doesn't go for too many takedowns. I think we're going to get a high-paced stand-up fight here that the Natural Born Killer is going to get the best of. And he throws enough strikes to where he can actually score pretty high in a decision in 3 rounds. So my preferred play here in betting or DK would be Condit. I like him quite a bit. I had him parlayed with Jimmy Rivera, so now I just got him straight. So won't be too much of a return, but I'll take a win any way I can get it. But like I said, you're going to have to get 2 dogs somewhere. I think Neil Magny will be a popular one on DraftKings because he is the highest priced one. So if you got to get 2, I feel like people are going to go as mid-range as they can. And since he's the first one under the favorites, I feel like they're going to be clicking on his name. A lot of people are fading Condit. And I love when that happens. I love when everyone's saying somebody's done because I usually end up jumping the other way, and it gains me a lot of points via ownership because everyone's on the loser because they faded them, and then I got a low-owned guy sitting at the top of a tournament.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. But I got to know a little bit more of the Big Marley perspective. Look, when you picked Neil Magny to beat Kelvin Gastelum, he went out there, great body lock takedowns. And as you mentioned earlier, Kyle, you said one flaw in Condit's game is his takedown defense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like Neil Magny is some D1 wrestler because he absolutely isn't. But that being said, do you not think that if he took down someone like Kelvin, that he can also take down a guy like Condit?
No, I definitely think he can take down a Condit. But what's he going to do with it when he's down there? I think Condit will end up getting back up. I know Magny can go forever, but he's not a wrestler, so a wrestling game plan will not benefit his cardio at all. So I think eventually he will wear down if he's going with that game plan, and Condit will pick him apart in the later rounds. I'm thinking a decision from Condit, but I could even see a late finish here if that is the case. So I just don't see too many ways Magny gets this win other than if Condit really is that faded, and I just haven't seen anything that makes me believe he is.
So Khalil Rountree is making his return. He's taking on the newcomer Michal, Alexa Jachuk, and basically the deal here is, man, you already know the deal, Kyle. Either Khalil Rountree is going to knock you out in the first round, or chances are if it gets past the first round, or if the fight hits the mat one time, you know, he has gotten tapped out, and he's not afraid to tap that mat. You know what I'm saying, man? Kind of like old school Melvin Gillard, super dangerous on the feet, but you threaten that neck, and it could be good night, Irene. That being said, I think he's the favorite for a reason. You think he's going to come out?
I think he does knock him out here, probably in the first round. The other guy doesn't have many subs on his record, so I haven't seen anything that makes me think he can definitely get it here. I know Rountree has nothing on the ground for him, but I think they're going to want to stand and bang, and hope that one of them goes down. So I think the better play is Rountree. I think he would be a better play in cash because he's probably a safe 90, maybe 100 points. Where in GPPs, you really need him to outscore everybody because he's the highest priced at 9,400. So I think I would rather just fade him in GPPs and hope he doesn't score high, or maybe hope I just don't think I want the other guy to get the submission either because I don't see me having much of him. I don't think he's likely to win, and I don't want to punt that low. When I have to have two dogs, you're going to have two of them hit, and I don't think he's likely to be one of them. So I'd rather go to Rountree or nothing here, but like I said, cash only. Let's fade him in GPPs.
So an interesting lightweight fight that got added to the main card is Marc Diakiese versus Dan Hooker. Now, it's interesting because Marc Diakiese, he was undefeated until his last fight with Drakkar Klose. But man, I've seen some flashes, I don't want to say brilliance, but I've seen a lot of potential from Marc Diakiese. He does some real athletic shit with those spins, and also I saw some very good fight IQ in that Frankie Perez fight when it was tied 1-1. He had to make a decision if he wanted to win that fight. He went to his wrestling and he won the fight. Now with Dan Hooker, I respect him as well. Very exciting guy, but he is a 500 fighter, Kyle. He wins one, loses one, wins one, loses one. Now obviously, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the story for the rest of his career. He could change that here with a win. Kind of like Jan Blachowicz did when he fought Jared Cannonier. You know, he was also a guy that could never win 2 in a row, and then he finally won 2 in a row. It was what it was. That being said, I personally think the athleticism and dynamicism of Marc Diakiese is going to be the difference. Are you feeling the same way, or are you thinking there's going to be an upset here?
Yeah, I like Diakiese a lot in this fight. I think the wrestling is really the key. If he wants to wrestle, this fight's all his. But I think he can win it on the feet, too. I think he can knock Hooker out, and I think he can win the decision on the feet. But what I really want when I'm picking him in DraftKings is all those takedowns that he can get. He's not the best at holding people down the whole time, so that's good for us. Hooker can get up. Let's get him back down. Keep adding those takedowns in, and we can score high. I bet Diakiese in a parlay with Usman, I think, yesterday. So I'm pretty high on him. I think he can get a finish, but my pick is most likely by a decision, and I don't think he'll have too much of a problem paying off his $8,700 price tag. And then on the other side with Hooker, he's $7,500. I think he'll be somewhat popular based on odds and the DK salary value. So I would rather just fade Hooker, 100% of fade, and go with maybe 75% Diakiese. I'm pretty heavy on him here. I think he's a good pick in cash and GPP.
So, off the top of your head, do you know which fight Diakiese scored more points in? Was it that devastating, 20-second knockout of Teemu Pacquiao, or was it the fight with Frankie Perez where he had all those takedowns?
It was Pacquiao. With the Perez, he lost that one round, so you're really getting only 2 rounds of points that he got. So that's what made him only get 74 points in the Perez fight. But against Pacquiao, he had 103. So let me get that first round knockout instead.
Yeah, definitely. So, another really good featherweight fight, Myles Jury taking on Rick Glenn. Now, we haven't really seen much from Myles Jury in a couple years. I mean, the only fight he's had in the last 2 years was that, first-round finish of Mike De La Torre. But with Rick Glenn, man, he's been flying under the radar. You recall when, him and Gavin Tucker opened as a pick'em, right? And the public steamed Gavin Tucker to a -400. Rick Glenn went out there and, set a significant strike record on the kid. It was a very, very devastating win, or loss, however you want to consider it, right? It was a very devastating performance for Rick Glenn. Now, here's the thing, man. I'm thinking if it's kind of a pretty fight, that Jury's going to win, but if it's a gritty dog fight, Glenn's going to take it. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, I felt like an idiot after that last Glenn fight. I faded him 100%. Now, he's probably the highest scoring guy on that card. So my night was dead after that fight ended. So it's definitely making me want to lean towards Glenn here, but I think most people are thinking that same way because of the noise he made in that last fight. So he will be the more popular guy here. I'm guessing he's going to be 30, maybe 35% owned by the field. I will have some of them, but that also makes me like Jury more in GPPs because he will be low owned. Nobody's going to want to click on him when you have to have 2 dogs, and I think Glenn is going to be most people's favorite dog. So you can get a Jury at pretty low, maybe 15 to 20% owned in GPPs, and he has the chance for over 100. I don't think Glenn is going to do what he did to Gavin Tucker against a vet like Jury. My pick to win is jury, but I'm having the same problem where it's just hard to click on him over guys like Diakiese, who I'm really heavy on, and other guys that are above him. So I do want exposure to both sides of this fight. If I had to pick maybe one lineup, I think I'd rather go with Glenn. Just play it safe, get the same dog as everybody else, and hope my other one is different and they both hit. But you can get jury at some pretty low ownership in GPP. So I think I'd stay away in cash, maybe make him a GPP only play.
So a really intriguing flyweight matchup. We got Matheus Nicolau taking on Louis Smolka. Now, back to your point earlier, whenever everyone's saying someone's done and that person that everyone's saying is done has their back up against the wall, it's a very scary proposition to bet against them, man. I mean, you remember when Michael Johnson fought Dustin Poirier and everyone was counting out Michael Johnson. His back was up against the wall. He went out there and he finished Poirier. Now, I personally have Matheus Nicolau. I'm going to tell you why, man. Because, as you know, since you've been watching Louis Smolka for a long time, he's a very exciting guy. But what he likes to do is he likes to get himself in bad positions early so he can scramble his way out of them. And that's one of the qualities I really respect about Louis Smolka is that, 10 seconds into the fight, he's in full mount bottom, but he reverses and then he smashes dudes. The issue here, Kyle, is this is the first black belt that Louis Smolka has ever fought, and this ain't just any black belt. This is a first place at IBJJF black belt, a dude that trains with Damian Maia every single day black belt. That's what we're talking about. So if Louis Smolka gives up that full mount or gives up his back early, I don't think this is going to be the kind of fight where he can just scramble his way out of it. I think he could actually get finished in that spot. And on the feet, man, you saw Matheus Nicolau put on a 3-round boxing clinic against the number 5 guy on planet Earth, John Moraga. Now, I know everyone's talking about the USADA suspension, but the reason I think it's a complete non-factor and should not even be brought up once is because this is a 24-year-old kid. This ain't a 40-year-old like Vettori where it looks like his body's melting and you know what I mean? The guy has zero business fighting anymore. Matheus Nicolau is 24. Kind of like, remember when Brian T. City Ortega popped in his UFC debut? No one ever talks about that, and he's been finishing every single fight since then. I view this as a similar situation. As you know, I moved the line from Matheus Nicolau. I moved it from minus 175 to about minus 400. Now a lot of action came in on Smolka. We're looking at minus 220 Nicolau, plus 180 Smolka. Which way you going, bro?
Yeah, I think you got the right side in this one, and you got the line that I wish I got. If I was going to invest in this fight, I mean, if you're selling some pieces, you let me know because I'll buy in. But right now, at the current line, I think I would rather just take the shot on Smolka and do what I said earlier. When everyone's going one way, I'm going to go the other. So I will have exposure to both sides of this fight for that reason. If Smolka wins, he could score very high. I don't think he does, though. He just gives up takedowns so easily. He just accepts them, really. And that's not a good idea in this fight. So I think you're on the right side, and at a price tag of $8,900, we've seen Tim Elliott score, 177 or so points over Smolka, so you could definitely have a really high ceiling against him. So I'm interested in all formats in Nicolau. But as you said, man, when everyone's zigging, I'm going to zag usually, so I got to have a few shots at Smolka as well. I like both sides of this fight, but you got the best investment that I've seen yet.
You bring up great points, but, the way you're feeling about, everyone, saying Smolka's done and stuff, that was the case a couple days ago when it was minus 300 Nicolau, plus 220 Smolka. But now we're looking at, minus 220 Nicolau, plus 180 Smolka. So a ton of action is coming on Smolka because a couple days ago, bro, it was plus 300 Smolka. Now it's plus 180. You know what I'm saying? That's a $1.20 drop.
Well, yeah, I actually didn't even see that drop. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's probably closer to where the line should be in my eyes. So I would need it to move a little bit more for me to want that Nicolau money. And right now I couldn't bet Smolka at plus 180. So I guess I'm avoiding this 100% from a bet unless something changes. And I would rather just take both sides in GPPs and hope that the winning side can go off and I can come in first in the tournament. So I have interest in both sides, but Nicolau I think has the higher ceiling, but it'll also be more popular. So I'm really torn on this fight. I don't know who to have more exposure to, but I'll definitely have both guys.
So you brought up Tim Elliott, and it's interesting because we just talked about him 2 weeks ago, Kyle. And every time that he's on the card, we got to address the same thing. On his best possible day, he will break a fucking DraftKings record. On his worst possible day, he'll score 1 point. So, when you're dealing with a guy that can score 170 or score one, I mean, is it a case where you're like, all right, I got to roll the dice and put him in there, or are you just like, bro, I want no part of it whatsoever?
Yeah, I think I got to roll the dice with a ceiling like he has. Against a newcomer, I have to have some Elliott. I can't just fade him here, but he's having some rough times. His coach just died. Apparently, he went out to Vegas a little bit early, and he was just staying up all night drinking. He said his body's suffering from it. So all that makes me really lean more towards Rosa. So I can't completely fade him either. So again, I want both sides of this fight. I just think that ceiling of Elliott is too high to completely fade if you're a multiple lineup kind of guy, which I am. So if I'm making 10 lineups here, I'm thinking I probably want maybe 4 Elliott, 3 Rosa, maybe 4 and 4. But I have interest in both sides because if De La Rosa pulls it off, he's probably going to be more underowned than he should be because of that high ceiling Tim Elliott has. Everybody remembers that Smolka fight, and they want to chase those points. So he'll get pretty high ownership, maybe top 3 on the card. And if you get that Ben 10 situation where everyone has him and he puts up a 1 and you got the other guy, you're sitting pretty in the tournament. So another one where I want both guys, but my pick is Elliott.
So, man, last but not least, middleweight division. Marvin Vettori, the Italian Dream. He's taking on Omari Akhmedov. And as you know, man, I got a ton of respect for all the Russians. And it's interesting, I say that because Omari's last fight against Razak Al-Hassan, dude, I bet big on Razak Al-Hassan. And Omari went out there and, you know what I'm saying? He spoiled the plans, but I got nothing but respect for him. And I was like, holy shit, he is so much bigger than Razak Al-Hassan in there. And now, coincidentally enough, he's moving up to 185 pounds. But the thing is here, man, when you're fighting a guy like Razak Al-Hassan, it kind of looked like Razak could have made 155 pounds that fight. Marvin Vettori could arguably make 205 pounds, you know what I mean? So this is finally, Omari's going to fight a dude his size, if not bigger. So I'm just wondering if his takedowns are going to be effective in this spot or if it's going to be, the King's MMA, southpaw, forward pressure, big body kick style of Marvin Vettori that's going to be the difference.
Yeah, I like Vettori in this one. I think he's my only pick. It's not a fight where I want both sides. I think he wins almost however he wants. If he wants to finish it, I think he can do that. But I think a decision's possible as well. Yeah, I think it's just a bad fight to make your debut at in 185 for Akhmedov. And I don't see how he has a really high-scoring night either. I don't see him putting away Vettori early, and I don't see Vettori fading more than he does and getting him late. So this is one where I really only have interest in Vettori or fade the fight altogether. But you got some value here because Vettori is cheaper on DraftKings than Diakiese, but he's got a better betting line. And he could win in this first round with the knockout with the big boys here. So I have interest in him. I don't know how much I want of him, if it's a 50% kind of thing. But I'm definitely going to fade Akhmedov, and Vettori's my pick here.
Well, Kyle, man, it's going down this Saturday. UFC 219, the last pay-per-view of the year, the last event of the year. And, man, what a year it's been, dude, and what a way to cap things off. And I'm pumped, man. Any closing words for the fans on what this great year has been?
Man, it's been a fun one. Look forward to the next. It never stops. The grind keeps going. So I'll see you for the next card. Let's enjoy this one and make some money.
Yes, sir. Make sure you follow this man at Big Marley 3. And you can challenge this guy to, head-to-heads on DraftKings. But if you come at the king, Kyle,
you best not miss.
Man, Kyle Marley killing it as always. The last episode of Half the Battle for 2017. And he brought the goods as always.
Which he is known for.
And which he is known for indeed. A huge part of the Half the Battle team. It's great having Kyle Marley on board. Make sure you follow this man at Big Marley 3. Now, Shaq, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC 219?
The fight to watch, man, I'm going to go with Myles Jury and Rick Glenn. Like we said, Rick Glenn is one of those guys that people think they're going to go in there and they think they're just going to take care of them. And me and you both know that's just not the case with Rick Glenn. Remember that fight with Evan Dunham, that third round, how Rick Glenn was fighting? And, Myles Jury, I'm interested to see if he can get back on a winning streak. The guy, at one point, I thought the guy was going to be a future world champion. And, those days look those days look long over. So
I'll take the wager on never.
those days look very done. You know, he's got a kid now. I'm interested to see if he can get back on track. He's back with his old team, the people that brought him up. I know this is a very important fight for him. He's got his boy Jeremy and Dom Cruz with him. So I'm interested to see if Rick Glenn, you know, proves that he has always been one of the best featherweights in the world, like how he was in World Series of Fighting. So that's the fight I'm actually looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. And obviously, my fight to watch, man. It's Carlos the Natural Born Killer versus Neil Magny. Look, Carlos Condit has about 6 Fight of the Night bonuses in the UFC, 1 in the WEC. Anytime he fights, win or lose, it's going to be super exciting. And with Neil Magny, he always needs the right dance partner to make an exciting fight. You know, if you just sit there and stare at a guy like Neil Magny, it's not going to be very exciting. But you get someone that comes to fight him, this has all the ingredients for Fight of the Night. I'm going Condit versus Magny. So, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC 219?
Opening up the FS1 prelims from Sao Paulo or Via Vella or wherever he's from, Rio de Janeiro, my boy Matheus Nicolau, about to take care of Louis Smolka. Don't forget this kid at 22 or 23 years old at the time took out the number 6 flyweight in the world, John Moraga. Yeah, Chicano John Moraga in his flyweight debut off the Tough Show. The guy's got very good experience. I know he got knocked out by Pedro Nobe, but he took that first L. He was on the Tough Show fighting way bigger
And he
guys.
fought tough in that fight, by the way.
Exactly. He didn't go down. He didn't take a knee. And, you know, he was in there against guys like Reginaldo Vieira, guys that are way bigger than him. Guys like Delano Lopez who are way bigger than him. Everyone's like, oh, he lost to Delano. But if you actually watch the fight, you would understand why. I thought he won that fight, but it was understandable. But look, the kid's got some serious potential. Like we said, this is a very good opportunity for him to showcase his skills, and I think he's the fighter to watch.
Shaq, I hate being boring and stealing your fighter to watch, but when I got 6 units on the line, it's pretty obvious that Matheus Nicolau is my fighter to watch. And not only that, I mean, when you get the chance to fight a guy like Louis Smolka, it's going to be a super intriguing fight because if Louis is able to get off on his scrambles, which he is known for, which I highly doubt, Shaq, it'll make for an exciting back-and-forth fight. But that being said, if it goes down how I think it's going to go down with Matheus completely neutralizing him, shutting him down, putting on, you know, a clinic, letting everyone that made USADA, you know, oh, he's coming off a steroid suspension, making all those arguments look dumb as fuck. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. For that reason, he is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, it's going down this Saturday, UFC 219. We did it, man. They can follow you at MMA Genius 05. They can follow me at Best Fight Picks. And we're not going to announce anything quite yet, but all I got to say is big things coming up next year. Isn't that right?
Yeah, very big things. And, you know, thanks for all the support. And we will continue, you know, having those max bet winners for you.
We will keep delivering. That's the bottom line, just like we've done. You know, about to have my 3rd successful year in a row, but this is going to be my biggest one no matter what happens Saturday night, so I'm super excited. Make sure you subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Stitcher, and hook up those 5-star reviews. Thank you guys so much for the support, and until the next time, let's cash these bets.